Good morning, everyone. Today we are going to work on, well, first of all, we've got all of the small parts painted. They're all laid out here. I did throw a couple things on the tractor here: the front fuel tank support, the upper portion of the steering support, our middle steering shaft, I guess journal you could call it. And I've got the rear steering support, hydraulic lever, support arm. This is the bracket for the radiator shutter control and the belt pulley engagement arm, and then the light box, light switch and housing box. And I think that's about all I've really done. So I mean, there's not much to putting these pieces on. There's 4 bolts that holds the front fuel tank support on, 4 bolts that hold this on for the upper steering, the forward steering support, I should say, and 3 bolts for the rear steering or rear fuel tank support, and 3 bolts for that, and then everything just kind of bolts together from there. But I do have to get some nuts and bolts, so that's what I'm going to do this morning, is take inventory of everything we need for nuts and bolts, and then most likely we're going to get pretty much everything together that we have that won't be in the way for installing things like the radiator, the fuel tank, and the tin work. But we cannot install the steering shaft because the radiator has to go on first, and that's still at the shop up at Hermantown Radiator. Can't install the fuel tank and stuff, obviously, because it's not painted yet, and that's kind of our last step in doing everything, is installing that stuff. But I should be able to get, you know, the copper lines installed for the breather tube, the crankcase vent breather tube for the air cleaner, the oil lines for the oil pressure gauge I should be able to get installed. So we should be able to make some good progress today. And I still have to pull the front wheels back off and bring them to get the tires taken off, sandblast, and then re-powder coated. So we'll do that at some point today maybe, but for now, I'm just going to take inventory of what bolts I need and go from there, so stay tuned. Okay guys, we've got all our bolts, or most of our bolts I should say, but I've just been kind of plugging away on putting things back together. It's really self-explanatory. Let's see, what have I done? I tightened the bolts down for this upper steering support and the steering support journal in the front, installed the gauge cluster plate, which goes V-shaped end down so that you can clear the throttle shaft. I installed the air cleaner. It's real simple. It's just those 2 bolts there, air cleaner tube. And I discovered when I installed the alternator here, using the brackets that were supplied by Charlie's Repair, the alternator belt that we had was too short by probably about 1 inch. So we're going to have to change that out. And what else did we do? I've been slowly changing out their hardware. This is grade 8 here. All of the hardware on the water jacket plate on this side is all grade 8. So we changed that out. On the governor housing, it's all grade 8. I still have to change out the bolts for the tappet cover, or I should say the lifter cover. Make sure those are grade 8. I installed the light switch and ammeter box the starter switch mount, the light bar bracket. I still have to tighten these two bolts here for the hydraulic rod and the plate that holds the shutter control and the belt pulley rod. I installed the hitch. We got our new roller here, and then everything is grade 8 hardware all the way around, down here, inside here, same over here. PTO shield is on, PTO lever. Let's see, we installed all of the brake and clutch components. So one thing I want to point out here, the actuating lever for the left side or the left brake it's got a slight S curve to it, but on the right brake it's a far more pronounced curve. You can see here, because it has to sneak between these two pedals. And if you reverse them, which I ended up doing, the spring for the brake here does not align with the bottom bracket on the pedal. So if you use the left side actuating arm on the right side, it'll actually put it about right here. So you can't even use the brakes if you do it that way. It won't work. So, but we've got the brakes adjusted equally. You do the adjustment by loosening this jam nut and then turning this spring assembly either up or down this shaft, and that'll put more tension or less tension on the actuating arm, or I should say it'll pull it further down or push it farther up, which either relaxes or tightens the brake band inside there. So we've got the brake pedals on and adjusted. We've got the clutch pedal on and adjusted. Now the only way to adjust the clutch pedal is to adjust the throw here on the linkage, which runs to the clutch fork cross shaft. And the way you want to set it up is about 1 inch to 1.25 inches of free travel between the transmission deck and the pedal. So then you should be able to press the clutch from there. So that's our free travel. If you want, I can measure it. I'll grab a tape measure here. I just eyeballed it, so let's see where we're at. 1 inch on the button. Not bad. Maybe 1 1/16 inches. So, but we're getting there. We're getting there. Give you guys kind of a sneak peek at where we're at. So I also installed if we get down underneath here, the clutch inspection cover, and this is also where the hole is for the grease zerk for the clutch. I think I'm going to put bolts through this hydraulic drive shaft and the collars that hold it in place instead of using cotter pins, just because bolts are they're a little easier because you don't have to bend, you know, the cotter pins and stuff around, and they're reusable. So I'll probably use bolts with nylock nuts and no washers. Should be able to use a 1/4 inch bolt, so I'll have to see what length I got to get. But that's about where we're standing. So I do have to get a new fitting for the back of the cylinder head for the vent pipe that comes up to the air cleaner. Oh, I also installed the oil line that goes down here. Not exactly an easy thing to install by yourself, or with the oil filter housing in place. So word to the wise, if you're assembling everything, leave the oil filter assembly off before you put that, or I should say install the oil line from the bottom of the block there before you put the filter assembly on the block. It just would make life a lot easier. So it's just really hard to get a wrench in here to tighten that fitting. But about all we could do is install the oil pressure and temp gauges and bolt on the lights. One thing I did notice about the seat, okay, now I did set it on here, but I must not have been looking at it right, because this bracket for the bottom of the seat that mounts to the top of the transmission housing, let me set the camera down. So in this position, these two holes, the two forward holes, line up. See if you can see it here. So this hole here lines up, and this one is off by half a hole. So what I'm going to do, not exactly the best method, but I think I'm going to ream out the rear holes. Now again, this is off the John Deere A. So I'm going to ream out the rear holes and just install a large flat washer on there, because you have to have a bolt in those holes because they go straight through into the top of the transmission. So if you don't put a bolt in them, they will get water directly into the transmission. So we're going to have to do something with that. But that's where we're at with the seat. And I think I'm going to stop the video here and see what else we can get done. But we're kind of getting down to the nitty-gritty of installing electrical, you know, the starter, wiring, all that stuff. And then we're just in the final stages of doing the tin work and waiting on the radiator. So we're getting real close.